Indianapolis Colts mandatory minicamp has concluded, but all eyes have been on Anthony Richardson since the quarterback did not throw on Thursday. What's the latest on Richardson's shoulder? And what stood out at minicamp this week? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined by my fellow analyst and co-host at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, I think we all knew this going into this week that the focus would be on Anthony Richardson. And of course, we can't have anything Colts related without a little bit of drama. So some things happen. Anthony Richardson started out throwing at the beginning of the week on Tuesday. And then by today, he did not participate in the throwing because of some soreness in that shoulder. So obviously, Colts fans were all worried. And I think the PTSD from all the quarterback issues reared their ugly head today. But yeah, I think it's going to be, we're going to have definitely some good discussions over what happened in this mini camp, just as the Colts end up breaking for the summer. But how are you doing, buddy?
Doing great. And, now that mini camp is underway, you're going to hear it's really good to not get absolutely bombastic news up to this point. I know that Colts fans have been, victims of that. So the less you hear, the better. And so obviously we're going to dive into all the happenings. There's been multiple updates. Of course, there's Anthony Richardson's shoulder that we have to discuss so that we can quell all the worries of every single Colts fan that thinks he's out for the season again. And yeah, I'm pumped because this is the most excited that we've mentioned this, Andrew. This is probably the most exciting that the roster from top to bottom has looked in years, and young. They're super young and super hungry, man.
Yeah, I agree. So tonight we're going to talk about everything that happened from mandatory minicamp this week, from Anthony Richardson and his shoulder to what Richardson actually did on the field and everything in between. But let's take a look at the chat. Truitt is our first one. As always, AR is ready to rip it hard, son, he says. It looks like, he was earlier in the week, but definitely still have to take it easy with AR's shoulder. But good to see you, Truitt. Sean Contwright is in. Hey, guys, we've got Barber Crane, Lucas Oil, baby. Yeah, Lucas Oil Stadium. The Colts announced that they sold out of season tickets this week. So there's now a wait list, which I can't remember there being a wait list for season tickets in quite some time. So Lucas Oil will be packed. But good to see you, buddy. Richard Rhodes said these dudes on Twitter from the other division teams are so annoying today, especially Tic Tac Titans. Dude has Drew Lock 2.0 in Mayo, man. So there's definitely some trash talk between the fans of the division rivals. But you know what? That's what else is there to do in June when we don't have meaningful football still for another 3 months. But as people come in tonight, if you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast here on YouTube, or Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel, I should say. Make sure you hit that bell so the notifications are turned on so you never miss an episode of Drake and myself. But if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you, and you can get access to Horseshoe Huddle Halftime, our audio only episodes as well. So Drake, let's dive right into it. Let's begin recapping Colts mandatory minicamp. And of course, we're going to start out with the man that everybody is talking about, Anthony Richardson and his shoulder status. So if you haven't been paying attention or you don't know what happened this week, Anthony Richardson did start out the week throwing. He went through the full practice on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, he was seen stretching his throwing arm a little bit multiple times on Wednesday, and he just looked uncomfortable, and he was looked at by trainers a few times. He didn't take all the starting reps in the 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 sessions like he normally does. And then it turns out on Thursday, he did not throw with his throwing shoulder. He went through some footwork drills and then ended up throwing with his left hand or with his left arm, but he didn't participate in anything else, did not throw with his throwing shoulder. So after practice, Coach Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson both spoke to the media to kind of dive into that, and they didn't seem worried at all about this. But Drake, I want to ask you first before we dive into some of their comments, what what do you think? What is your cause for concern about Anthony Richardson's shoulder and how, he wasn't able to finish off mandatory minicamp today?
Not at all. I mean, this guy just had reconstructive, preventative strengthening surgery on his shoulder, and it's constant rotational movements. So you're talking about, it's natural. That's going to happen. Okay, it'd be a little bit weird actually if he just went out there and just everything looks great. When he was just throwing, That's it. Okay. He was just throwing to wide open guys pretty much. Okay. Now, obviously, he did play a little bit against resistance and against the defense and stuff, but ultimately it's shoulder surgery, man. And it's going to take some time to get that back into that rhythm, loosen up those muscles. Things are a little bit tense, and that's perfectly fine just because of how, serious the surgery was and just how long it's supposed to keep that shoulder strong. So Colts fans, just relax. I mean, I'd rather them sit him out and be careful than just be like, you know what, that stiffness, you just need to get through it. Just go ahead and keep throwing and then rip. There you go, man. You got him out there way too soon. So they're doing this right. And so is Anthony Richardson. And he even said, I'll be fine. I'm good. So,
yeah. And I put this out on X earlier today. It's June. Yeah, I know that it may not seem like it, but it is June. Like I said in the intro, we have still 90 some days until opening day or until week 1 of the NFL season. Plenty of time. And I want to dive into these comments here from Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen. Didn't get the clips up for you guys on the YouTube side of things. I do apologize for that. But Richardson today, when he was asked directly after practice how he was feeling, he said, yeah, I'm good. Just a little soreness. I've been dealing with soreness since I started throwing, just my shoulder, but it's hard. I'm listening to the trainers that told me, no, you've got to sit out for a day. I don't want to sit out, but it's part of the health journey. So I'm just rocking with them and just listening. So, and then when Shane Steichen was talking after practice today, he was asked directly if Anthony Richardson was okay, and he said, yeah, rest assured, if we played on Sunday, he'd be starting. He just had some soreness in his arm. So for precautionary reasons, we just held him out today. That's all that it is, guys, and really this is the only time that Anthony Richardson, he talked about it today. This is the first day of the entire offseason program that he's had to rest, and that's rare. That's a really good sign. That tells you that his shoulder is holding up. Now, you still want to be careful with it. You don't want to send him out there and throw 150 balls a day as hard as he can. He's still, like he said, he even admitted this on the Pat McAfee show this week. He's about at 95%. He's not all the way back yet. He's still working off the rust, getting his arm back into throwing shape. And being able to build that strength back up in there. So yes, I think, for Colts fans, when you see a quarterback with a shoulder injury and then he sits, everyone thinks back to what happened with Andrew Luck in 2019. I understand it was a calf injury, but same thing as far as injuries with quarterbacks. That's not the case here. It's mandatory minicamp. We're still a long ways away from the regular season, and they're just being careful with it. Michael Pittman Jr. didn't practice at all this week. It wasn't because he couldn't. Shane Steichen earlier in the week said if we had a game on Sunday, Pittman would be playing. So precautionary reasons. Alec Pierce got his foot stepped on last week. He didn't practice all week. So any little nick, any little ding these guys are suffering, the Colts are just being careful, keeping them out. And I think that's the smart way to go about it.
And that's how you should. I mean, you're talking about the pillars of your team. You don't want to just be willy-nilly with your freaking quarterback that you are banking your entire future on. So just rest easy, Colts fans. Everything's gonna be fine. In fact, I saw a bunch of people just making jokes about the fact that Richardson was injured, had the sat out with the shoulder, but I fully expect him to make a great recovery and get to that 100% mark that he's probably striving to be.
I would agree. Our first super chat of the evening is from the man himself, Shaheen. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat, buddy. Really, really do appreciate it. Drake, time to take a drink, or should I say Jake, as Shaheen named you the last time he gave you the super chats. Shaheen says, "Cheers, guys. Happy to be here early. Happy for another show." We appreciate the hell out of you, Shaheen. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it. But yeah, Drake, I mean, there really isn't a story here with Anthony Richardson. You know, he's fine. He's good to go. Now he can start talking about what he's doing on the field. Shout out to my beautiful wife, Danielle, for her super sticker, taking care of baby Jackson as I'm doing this show with you guys out there. And he's turned into an absolute tank already 3 weeks old, which is hard to believe. Drake told me, you know, it flies by in the blink of an eye. That was one of the advice he gave me as a new dad. He wasn't wrong. So thank you so much for all your support, Danny. Really, really do appreciate it. But yeah, Drake, so let's talk about what Anthony Richardson actually did on the field. And I think the thing that honestly stood out to me about what was happening, obviously with mandatory minicamp, they're in like shells or helmets and shorts pretty much. There's no hitting, there's no tackling. So I think Jim Bob Cooter even said that it turns into like a passing academy or a passing camp for the most part. And so this is a good opportunity to see kind of how Anthony Richardson is hooking up with his receivers early on in the process. The guy that showed one of the biggest connections this week was Richardson and Adonai Mitchell. AD Mitchell was all over the field, making plays, in particular catching balls from Anthony Richardson. I know there was on Tuesday when Richardson took all the reps, and there was a 7-on-7 period where there was a red zone touchdown from Richardson to Mitchell, where Mitchell skied up, had to twist and contort his body over Jalen Jones, who is a starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. It came down with that touchdown. So Drake, it hasn't been very long that Mitchell's been on this team. I mean, the draft was just over a month ago, and it looks like Mitchell and Richardson have already developed a really good connection, which great to see, especially when talking about the impact that Mitchell could have already in his rookie season.
Yeah, and it definitely looks like Richardson is a smart quarterback. You know, he's I mean, as soon as they drafted Downs, you know, he was out there throwing the ball with him, building that connection in the parking lot. And then we saw the impact that Josh Downs had in his rookie season, at 60 plus catches, 700 plus yards, pretty much second on the team across the board and everything, behind only Pittman. And so now you're looking at him building this connection with AD Mitchell, who has more athleticism, is more explosive, and is really, if you look at the overall skill set, he might be the most well-rounded guy. If it all works out, you're looking at a real weapon. So it's great to see him already connecting with AD Mitchell. It's great to see Mitchell, who really had one big season of production in college at Texas, making plays already. You know, he's already starting to show that he can get out there and get things done. So obviously it's just the start. So don't lose it yet, Colts fans. Okay. He still has a long way to go. AD Mitchell is a young dude. Okay. He's young. He's like 21, 22. So fully expect him to just keep growing. And the fact that he beat Jalen Jones, who many of us at Horseshoe Huddle think could be a starting level cornerback, that's pretty damn good, man, because Jalen Jones, he fought like a dog to get that starting position.
Well, and you think about it too, Drake, you know, you mentioned how young he is and everything, and how he'll continue to grow. But here's the thing, Mitchell has been routinely making highlight plays. Anytime that the media has had access, anytime we've had access to actually view practice and what's going on this spring, Mitchell's been making plays about every single day. You know, and that's a sign not only to us, but it shows the team that you come in, you're ready to contribute immediately. You know, and I think this is just good overall for this wide receiver room, because I wrote a piece on it earlier in the week where we heard from Alec Pierce. You know, Pierce did not practice this week, but he was there watching, and he was asked a lot about the competition between him and Adonai Mitchell. and how this is just he used the phrase that he said, we heard it all the time in college, is high tides raise all ships. That this having this type of competition in the wide receiver room, it's just going to make each other better. It's going to push Alec Pierce that much harder to go out there. Adonai Mitchell's already pushing to earn a starting role. It continues to, even for Pittman and Downs, who are really secured in their roles. Michael Pittman Jr. said this week that he's learned himself. He's learned different things from Adonai Mitchell as far as his route running technique and what he does to set up cornerbacks. So they're all bouncing ideas off each other, and they're all helping each other out to make on another well-rounded wide receivers in their own right. So the Colts, like I said, they have a really good young wide receiver core that a lot of them have really high potentials, including Pittman, who's the elder statesman of the group and only like 26 years old. But all of these guys still can grow and continue to get much better in their games. Shout out to DSG Goodbar for the $2 super chat. Really appreciate you. As he says, appreciate the hard work, guys. Hashtag drink Jake drink. Love it DSG Goodbar. You're an absolute legend, man. And Drake and I appreciate all the support you've shown us over, I think, Drake, I don't even know how many episodes in we are of the Horseshoe Huddle podcast now. I think it's probably close to 170. I think at least that's what I was looking up on the YouTube numbers. So we're almost 200 episodes in. DSG Goodbar has been there from the very beginning. Really appreciate all of your support. Yeah, but yeah, Drake. I mean, I think again, they're not in pads. So the defense can't be real physical with these wide receivers, but you're at least seeing Mitchell, quickly grasp this offense, going out there and making plays whenever his name is called upon. And he's not just doing this against, the second team defense. He's going out there with the ones because Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce have been down or not practicing. Mitchell's been out there with the ones and still making plays every single day, which is fantastic to see from the second round rookie.
Yeah. And, I'm going to point this out too. I know that we always talk about, not always, but at this point, we always talk about Josh Downs, looked great. Oh man, amazing. Obviously had incredible skill, incredible nuanced route running, especially with quick win. And same thing with AD Mitchell, but man, Reggie Wayne, I think he might be a serious winner as a wide receiver coach. I think that he's really in the ear of these guys. And I also think that a guy like AD Mitchell, with the ridiculously athletic potential he's got, I think that a guy like Reggie Wayne is just going to help him get those routes on point, get those little tiny fundamentals to match that athleticism. And I think he's going to try to get those things all on par, because that's really what you drafted Mitchell to be, is just the all-around weapon, the guy that can win on short, medium, long routes. He's really a deep threat too. So I'm excited for AD Mitchell's future, but obviously, guys, remember, pump the brakes. He still has to learn and he still has to grow as a fresh NFL player.
You can hear Drake's furry friend in the background. They're dog sitting this week, and he's got a buddy there that just wants to. Is it he or she?
It's a she.
She just wants to come and hang out and talk Colts football with us. You'll love to see it. But Drake, you mentioned Josh Downs there and how we kind of talked about him last year. Well, don't look now, but year 2 for Josh Downs. We talked about this on Monday. Year 2 for Josh Downs might be even better than year 1, because yes, AD Mitchell was making plays, but the guy that received the most passes from Anthony Richardson this week was Josh Downs, and it was by a considerable margin. Josh Downs was by far and away Anthony Richardson's favorite target out there this week at mandatory minicamp. And you talked about it. They created that connection in the parking lot last year during rookie camp. And it's it seems like even though Richardson missed all that time throughout the season, these guys have picked up right where they left off. And, Josh Downs, a year under his belt, that knee injury is done, not bothering him anymore. That really kind of slowed his progress to end last season. And if this is any indication, Drake, Josh Downs might, instead of getting the 68 catches that he did a year ago, look for 90, 95 catches out of Josh Downs and close to 1,000 yards. Like, he's going to be a high volume target for Anthony Richardson, especially close to the line of scrimmage to get the ball out quickly. Josh Downs is going to be there and ready.
Yeah, and that's the way that the modern NFL moves the football with the passing game. It used to be vertical passing, and then it kind of became, a little bit of medium and then deep. But nowadays, it is a passing league. But don't get it twisted. It's not, throw the ball deep, big play, big play, big play. It's a lot of these little short completions that start and create the opportunities to make those big plays happen. So when you're looking at the way Josh Downs is already working with Anthony Richardson and the way that he's already winning these, these catches and already becoming his favorite target, I mean, that's just perfect because, he's already laid the seeds for this relationship between the two of them last year, and it's just continued to get better. So it sounds like they're both improving at the same pace with one another, and they're becoming a tandem. And look, you still have Pittman, you still have Pierce, you still have AD Mitchell, and then you still have the tight end group. I mean, that's awesome because all those guys in their own respective right for the wide receiver room do something different. And I think as a unit, they each do something really special that could help Anthony Richardson blossom.
It's a very good point. This made me smile. The legend himself, Logan Schmidt, Scotty Colt, thank you so much for the $2 super chat, buddy. Really, really do appreciate it. Kind of maybe mocking some of the fans that are going ballistic or freaking out over Anthony Richardson's not throwing today, saying mock draft season, boys. So yeah, if you would have listened to some
QB next year.
Yeah, they're already according to a former NFL scout, they will be taking a quarterback next year, he says he's a former NFL scout. I don't really know how valid that actually is on X, but Logan, thank you so much, buddy, for all of your support, man. Really, really do appreciate it. I call Logan the GOAT. It's because Logan literally is the greatest of all time.
Yeah,
love you, dude. So, but yeah, Drake. I mean, Josh Downs, if again, and you brought up a good point that you can't just chuck the ball deep. And it's because a lot of these teams, because it's become a passing league, a lot of these defenses are now sitting back in a too high shell, and they're making sure that you don't beat them deep. They want to see quarterbacks stay patient and try to methodically move the ball down the field, and if they give up a run here or there, then they'll live with that, but they just don't want to be beat deep. So that's where you need your guys like a Josh Downs who can quickly win at the line of scrimmage. He is your quick win wide receiver. You need Michael Pittman Jr., who may not average 14, 15 yards per catch, but he also racks up 110 catches and gets you first down after first down after first down. Just a guy that can methodically move the chains. But both of these guys can still win deep. They're not strictly short area guys that can only win, between 0 and 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. We've seen Josh Downs take it to the house. We've seen Michael Pittman catch multiple jump balls, multiple, 50 plus yard catches. I think he had a 75-yard touchdown last year against the Cleveland Browns. So, all of these guys, while they may fit better as guys that can win short to intermediate, you sleep on them a little bit, they're going to beat you deep as well. Again, getting kind of back to that versatility of this wide receiver room where they're all pushing each other to get better in all different aspects of their game. And if all these guys can continue to get better, grow with Anthony Richardson, at some point it's going to be like pick your poison about who you really want to focus on. And with Shane Steichen at the helm, consistently changing up the game plan from week to week, depending on the opponent, depending on how the opponent is playing them, any one of these guys could beat you on any given Sunday. And I'm talking about Pittman, I'm talking about Josh Downs, and then you're hoping that Adonai Mitchell can get to that point as well.
Yeah, and again, we're going back to just how this whole receiver group has been constructed. You've got guys like Mitchell and Pierce that can be those deep threats, but then Mitchell can also be the intermediate. He can be the short guy. Well, then you've got Downs, who's the quick win. Then you've got Pittman, who's the kind of all around, possession guy, the target hog, if you will. So they've got, I think it's one of the most intriguing receiver groups they've had top to bottom. They're young. You've got your leader who's like 26 years old. Okay. I mean, that's awesome. He's far from even approaching that age where you're like, okay, when's the decline start? So I'm excited. And one more thing is Anthony Richardson's presence on the field just amplifies all this for all these guys. Okay. It makes their lives even easier. Especially once you start getting short completions, the ground game going, all those things, throw that defense off even a little bit. And man, that offense can make you pay. And if everything lines up, they could be one that no one's really talking about. I don't think a lot of people are, clamoring about how good the Colts could possibly be.
Exactly. Now let's talk about, we talked about Anthony Richardson and what he was doing. Well, Anthony Richardson didn't take all of the first team snaps. So who was that next man up? The guy that the Colts signed in free agency, Joe Flacco, the elite quarterback himself, Joe Flacco. And honestly, Drake, there wasn't much talk about what he did against the first team this week. A lot of it was check downs, kind of doing that sort of thing. But against the second team defense, Joe Flacco, to put it lightly, was lighting those boys up. Joe Flacco was slinging the ball all over the field. I think there was at one point 3 consecutive plays, 3 bombs from Joe Flacco to the Colts wide receivers against that second team defense. And this is just, I bring this up because it's just such a stark contrast to what the Colts were dealing with last year with their backup quarterback. We saw Gardner Minshew, and Gardner Minshew for almost led the Colts to the playoffs, as the backup quarterback. But Minshew was more, the quick passing game, methodical, drive the football down the field. With Joe Flacco, you're getting more of a quarterback that fits Anthony Richardson's style as far as being aggressive, pushing the ball down the field. He isn't reluctant to just let it fly and throw it deep like Gardner Minshew was at times last season. So you're getting a guy that's a former Super Bowl champion, former Super Bowl MVP in Joe Flacco, and he might not. He's there to basically, if Richardson does go down, and the Colts need a quarterback that can win them some games or win a game in a pinch, Joe Flacco's there, and the biggest job, or the job for Joe Flacco right now, is just to stay ready and make sure you have a good grasp of the offense. So if that opportunity does come about, let's hope it doesn't, but if it does, Joe Flacco's ready, and he's confident that he can go out there and lead this offense to a victory. And so far, Flacco's been looking good. He's looked the part of a really solid high-end backup quarterback, which is exactly what the Colts brought him in here to be.
Yeah, and I really like his fit. I know that when this initially happened, we're thinking, you got a less mobile guy, because I know Minshew wasn't that mobile, but he did rush for like 2 or 3 touchdowns last season. So
do you remember we were live on the show when the Colts signed Joe Flacco,
Yeah.
and we were kind of blown away by it at first, and then we kind of talked ourselves into it. But yeah, as the spring goes on, you're right. It does, his fit does it makes more sense when you think about it.
Yes, and when you can throw the ball deep, all right, this is something Jacoby Brissett did wonderfully as well, is when you can just throw that thing down the field, and you do have burners like Pierce, you do have burners like Mitchell, and as we saw with Pittman, he can also get it done. You cannot forget any part of the field. Flacco and Richardson both can just absolutely heave that thing. They both probably have like top half of the, I might even say top 10 arm strength. Like Flacco, even though he's like 40, can still just chuck that thing. So not surprised to hear him making big plays, especially against second team. Last season we can think of multiple games where a little bit of vertical throwing would have probably won the game for the Colts. I think that it really would have helped against the Falcons when they didn't have Pittman. I think that it would have probably helped against the Bengals when Hendrickson was just Hendrickson was just destroying Gardner Minshew. So I like it. I know he's a little older, but man, Flacco, I still think back to, I think there's still a little bit of that Super Bowl run in him when he played 4 playoff games, 11 touchdowns, not a single interception. That's still one of the most impressive 4-game stretches I've ever seen in the postseason. So I like it. His leadership's only going to help Richardson and help this team as well, because, hey, you're talking about a guy who's been there, done that, and won on the biggest stage in the biggest game.
Yeah, he's fitting into the quarterback room really well. It seems like him and Anthony Richardson have already developed a really close, really good relationship. As DSG Goodbar says here, I was happy to hear ARC Flacco's praises on McAfee's show. Yeah, Anthony Richardson just loves having Joe Flacco there as a resource that he can rely upon and ask questions to, but also someone that he can compete with, and someone that can push Anthony Richardson to get better too. That's what you want in your backup quarterback. You don't just want them sitting there and not putting pressure on the starting quarterback. Now we all know that there's no quarterback competition. This is Anthony Richardson's team, but Flacco can still push him. That friendly competition that's in the room. That's definitely needed. So yeah, Joe Flacco really, really showing out in mandatory minicamp, and that's definitely something that you want to see. You don't want to see Flacco going out there and throwing 4 picks against the second team defense, because if that happens, the next man up after that, Sam Ehlinger. You don't really have that much faith in Sam Ehlinger, especially when Ehlinger may not even be on the team as a third quarterback. We'll kind of have to see how that competition plays out between him, Keaton Slovis, and I think it's Jason Bean is the other one. So but really, I think that it's good to see that at least Joe Flacco still has it. I mean, hell, he was the comeback player of the year in the NFL last year. So definitely good to see that he is catching on quickly. Now, Drake, let's update some position battles, because especially in the secondary, we kind of talked about this on Monday. What we had seen and what we had heard, and really not a lot has changed. So let's look at quarterback. Jalen Jones is still taking the majority of the first team reps at cornerback over Dallas Flowers. So, and we talked about Mitchell making the play over Jalen Jones, but there were a lot of times that we heard this week that Jalen Jones was again contesting passes, being right there at the point of attack. So Jalen Jones knows that this spot is not going to be given to him. He has to go out there and continue to earn it every single day. Might be the incumbent now, but if he starts to falter and Dallas Flowers starts to go out there and make plays, it could very easily be switched and he could fall back to that second team. But so far, Jalen Jones looking pretty impressive.
Yeah, and he just continues to smash that 7th round pick, man. I mean, he's showing out. Last year he showed out. Obviously there was a little bit of a decline at the end of the year, but you kind of expected that, and so now he's improving. He's setting that pace earlier now than what he did last year. I mean, we were talking about Darrell Baker Jr. We were not talking anywhere near as much about Jalen Jones as we were Darrell Baker Jr. But then once that preseason started going, you were like, wow, this Jalen Jones dude, man, there's something about him that's pretty special, and maybe there's a reason that Darius Rush isn't on the team. So I like it. I also like Dallas Flowers, though. I think that he's got a role at cornerback clearly on the team. Very fast, great with keeping up with those speedy guys. But Jalen Jones, man, I think he's more of a complete corner. He's just an absolute monster when it comes to press coverage. Getting off of him is not easy. There's a reason that he just got targeted almost not at all at Texas A&M. So I think that you've got yourself maybe like a 3rd round type of talent here. And I think it just keeps climbing. I mean, he looks good. It looks like he feels good in this defense in year 2 with Gus Bradley. Clearly they appreciate his skill set. And honestly, man, I think he complements Kenny Moore and Juju Brents really well in that Gus Bradley scheme.
At this point last year, we were talking about Jalen Jones potentially spending a year on the practice squad, and then you see him in training camp and the kid just made plays every single day. And, it became evident because of the injury issues to Darius Rush and his inability to just stay on the field. Jalen Jones passed him up pretty quickly and he held on to it. So he already has experience dealing with a position battle like that. Now it's just for the starting role, instead of to make the roster. Now you got to do it against the starters to keep your starting role at outside cornerback. And then at free safety, Drake, we'll talk about Nick Cross. We said it on Monday. We said it last week that this is a make or break season for Nick Cross. The Colts traded up and back into the 3rd round in 2022 to draft him. He was thought to be a starting safety for the future for this team. And so far it hasn't panned out. But here early in minicamp, it's been Nick Cross taking pretty much all of the first team snaps at free safety. Rodney Thomas has been the guy rotating in with the 2s. And so, if at this point, with all things stand pat, Nick Cross is going to be the starting free safety. And again, I think unless the Colts are able to go out and sign someone like a Justin Simmons or one of the top safeties still remaining on the market, I think you have to find out what you have in Nick Cross. I don't think the coaches can, or I don't think the coaches should continue to treat Nick Cross like they have the past couple of seasons, because they've had him practice at free safety, at strong safety, in the slot. So when you're practicing and trying to play all those different positions, you're not able to focus on that one specific position and get really good at that one specific position. It's time to leave Nick Cross at free safety, let him go all off season at that one spot, give him that opportunity to start to see what you have in Nick Cross, so that way because unfortunately, time's running out. This is year 3 of his 4-year rookie deal. So the Colts need to decide and find out quickly if Nick Cross is going to be that long-term answer at free safety.
Yeah, and when you look at I love looking at his relative athletic score. Okay. He runs a 4.3 40, his 20-yard split, 10-yard split, shuttle, 3-cone, everything. It's just amazing, and he fits what they want at a free safety. He's not like lanky, he's not super duper like, I would say, nimble. What he's more of is just an absolute freak athlete that can really shore up that spot in coverage. Now, that we saw a glimpse of that against the Steelers, okay, where he really skied up and got a ball over George Pickens, who, regardless of the effort or whatever people say about him, George Pickens can absolutely play some freaking football, okay? So you saw it. It's there. It's just you got to make sure of it. And I like what you said there. I know everyone wants Justin Simmons. I know everyone wants Quandre Diggs. But here's the deal. You got to see if he's got that, if he's worth the trade up. You can't just keep this guy on a short leash. You got to let him out there at some point. And I think his rookie year, they benched him. Last year, they kind of put him out there a little bit. And then the wheels kind of fell off when Julian Blackmon was out. But now you got Blackmon in there. And I think it's going to help Cross a lot. And I think that they've got some guys there behind both of those guys at safety, even minus Daniel Scott, that can still play. Do they still add someone? Maybe. There's guys that aren't Quandre Diggs and Justin Simmons people. Okay, you can add depth to the safety position and still give Cross a chance. So I like it, Andrew. I think they might have wanted him to be a strong safety at first, just because of his build. But I think that he fits that free better. And plus, you're not taking Julian Blackmon away from a position that made him put up the best numbers we've ever seen him put up.
Exactly. That strong safety position is where Julian Blackmon's going to be. So if Nick Cross wants a starting role on this defense this year, it's got to be at free safety. And so far, he's holding that down. But yeah, Drake, and I think this offseason and mandatory minicamp really we'll kind of see how this all plays out. But if the Colts don't make a move for one of those top safeties to come in and be the starter immediately, and if they go out instead and get a depth piece at safety or don't sign a safety at all, I think that tells you that the Colts and really saw enough from Nick Cross throughout the spring and throughout minicamp and OTAs that they feel comfortable with him as their starter, or if he ends up winning that starting job, they would feel comfortable with that, going into this season. But if you do see them going out and signing like Justin Simmons, Quandre Diggs, or someone of that caliber, then that tells you all you need to know, that the Colts don't feel like Nick Cross can be that guy at free safety. And that was determined this spring. So again, over a month and a half until the Colts get back into Westfield for training camp. So a lot of time still to make moves at that safety position if the Colts feel like Cross isn't the answer. Let's give some injury updates here as we kind of wrap up our talk on minicamp. These guys did not practice this week. Michael Pittman Jr., because of the banging knees with Jalen Jones last week, strictly precautionary. As Steichen said, if they had a game this week, Pittman would be out there practicing and playing. Same with Alec Pierce. He got his foot stepped on last week in practice. So again, just taking things a little bit easy with him, but he feels like he is good to go. Ashton Doolin still recovering from that ACL injury, but he's expected to be back by training camp, as well as Braden Smith, who had that knee injury taken care of this offseason. He did not practice in OTAs or mandatory minicamp, but expected to be a full go once we get back for training camp in July. And then finally, Chris Lamont, cornerback, he had his foot in a boot and for most of the spring. Got out of the boot, I think, a day or two before the Colts wrapped up minicamp. He did not participate as well. And a guy like Chris Lamont, with already a kind of a crowded cornerback room, especially with the Colts drafting 2 cornerbacks on day 3. For him, he needs to be out there if he wants to make the roster or have a realistic shot once we get to training camp.
Yeah, and we've been high on Jalen Simpson. I like Jalen Simpson's abilities as a coverage guy, and I think that them switching him from safety to corner was awesome. Then you got to think about Lamons here. I mean, kind of like you said. Then you've got Micah Abraham, who could be. I know that his when they drafted him, we were like, "What the hell are they doing? Look at that relative athletic score." But then you think about the ball skills, you think about his coverage ability, you think about once that ball is in the air, Micah Abraham becomes a different player. He becomes a pretty dangerous guy, and he can get the ball away. He can take it away. He's going to be that guy that you're relying on to just not allow a catch to happen, basically, and probably will be used in third down situations at first. So yeah, Chris Lamons he's got to get on the field bad, or else I'll go ahead and say it, I think he could possibly be one of those guys that just doesn't make the roster by the end of it all. But we'll see. You still need depth, and if he can stay healthy, I don't see any reason why not to keep him. But hey, you also got a couple rookies who are really chomping at the bit to make an impact because they were picked in day 3.
Yeah, I would definitely say he's on the outside looking in
Definitely.
at this point. Yim has a question here. Not sure if it was mentioned yet or not, but are you guys concerned about AR this week? Yim, we kind of focused on that the first 10 minutes of the episode. Short answer, no. But go back and listen to our discussion on that. No concerns about Anthony Richardson. DSG Goodbar, thank you so much, buddy, for the $2 super chat. Really, really appreciate it. And DSG Goodbar brings up a really good point. Khari Willis retiring hurt more than we realized. And yeah, I think it did. The Colts were expecting Khari Willis to, be on this team for a while. And he was a really solid contributor at that strong safety spot. And then, Khari Willis, he did retire. I don't even know how many years he spent in the NFL. He wasn't done with his first contract, but he felt compelled, wanted to join the ministry, felt a higher calling than playing football. So props to him for wanting to do that. But Drake, I think it's certainly when you lose a starting quality player that made plays for you throughout the secondary, and Khari Willis, obviously it's going to hurt.
Yeah, and I mean, he only played 3 years. He played 2019 to 2021, and I mean, you're talking about 33 out of 39 games started. He had 4 interceptions. He had a touchdown return. He had 11 passes defensed and 219 total tackles, and also 7 for loss. So I mean, he also had 3.5 sacks. I mean, yeah, he was just going to continue to ascend. But you know what? Respect to a guy like that. I think that we've learned that if these NFL players feel like they can walk away from the game, a la Andrew Luck, you respect it. You respect it. You respect the decision. But yeah. At the end of the day, it's not easy to replace a guy like that. And clearly the Colts, it took a while, but man, I really do think Julian Blackmon can be I just think he's going to get better. As long as he can stay healthy and get somebody, hopefully Cross, to complement him at the free position, I think you've got yourself your replacement there.
Thank you so much, DSG Goodbar, for the super chat. We really, really do appreciate it. Let's wrap up some injury talk here, Drake, and this one hurts. I know this one especially hurts you because you were super high on this guy. Daniel Scott. Second year in a row. This time he tore his Achilles in OTAs last week and is out for the season. The Colts officially placed him on injured reserve today. And we even talked about him, man. He was making plays. He was showing out. And then for the second year in a row, he suffers a major lower body injury in the spring. And, he was drafted. He still hasn't played his first down of NFL football yet. And unfortunately, it's not going to happen this year. Just terrible, terrible break for Daniel Scott. And you're at this point, you're heartbroken for the kid, just so he could actually, you want to see him actually be able to step on the NFL field.
Yeah. And he already came into the NFL older, and as a 5-year professional or as a 5-year collegiate player. And, he misses his first season. Then you're like, all right, he's got a spot on this team. And then this happens. And so, you got to call it as it is. You're concerned now. You're really concerned because both are below the knee. Both are to a guy that's like 25, 26 years old. I mean, it's just not good and it's awful. Was it with the same leg? Do you remember that? Or
They haven't said if it's on the same leg as his ACL or not, but so I mean I'm sure we'll find out eventually, but that hasn't come out yet.
yeah, regardless of if it's the same or not, it's heartbreaking. And you just hope that, hey, it's a real big unfortunate thing that's happened to the guy. He can start rehab, get back on track, and make an impact. I think it would be special teams in 2025, but it just sucks that you have to say that because now he has to prep for 2025 again.
Yeah, again. And here's another one. Another safety went down. Backup safety Michael Tutsi went down with a non-contact injury as well. So two safeties already down with injuries. We know Scott is out for the year. We don't know about Tutsi if he's out for the year, but this alone, having depth issues at the safety position, could prompt the Colts to go out there and sign a guy this summer. When you already have two guys down, we're not sure about the severity of Tutsi's, but you're already down one for the season, potentially two.
Yeah, and Tutsi, he's from Warren Central, man. So he's an Indiana kid, and so it just sucks even more because you were hoping to have that awesome story of this guy making the team. But yeah, two safeties down, both depth safeties, and it looks like somebody must have walked by up there. But yeah, I mean, don't be surprised if there's a safety signing. I don't know if it's going to be Justin Simmons or Quandre Diggs, but I mean, I do think they're at least going to put somebody at depth.
Yeah, I would say that there's probably a good chance that does end up happening before we get to training camp later this summer. But that's a wrap on mandatory minicamp for the Indianapolis Colts. Today's practice again was really light, only about 40 minutes long for the Colts. Their final minicamp practice before breaking for the summer. The Colts they haven't revealed the date that they will return for training camp. Usually it's that second to last week in July. So you're probably looking at, July 24th, 25th ish when the Colts will end up with their first practice there at Grand Park in Westfield. But we're now officially in the dog days of the NFL season where nothing is happening all summer long. But hey, when mandatory minicamp ends, if you want to look on the bright side of things, the next thing we get to talk about, next time we see this Colts team, it'll be training camp. Training camp will be here, and that just means that the season is less than 2 months away.
Yeah, and look, the anticipation is finally, starting to come. It's starting to come into sight here. Obviously, the NFL season is it's such a long trip to get there, and such a short trip to get through it. So, everybody's super excited. I know I'm pumped. I can't wait to see the Colts start to actually mesh, work together as a young team, and hopefully, primarily, stay healthy from top to bottom.
Exactly. Let's talk about the latest Colts news and rumors here, Drake. First off, Adonai Mitchell signed his rookie deal. It became official today that now the Indianapolis Colts have signed their entire 2024 draft class to their rookie deals. Last year, I think the last one to sign was Anthony Richardson, and he signed it right before training camp. I know there was a lot of people that kept asking, when's he going to sign? When's he going to sign? We don't have to worry about that this year. Mitchell signed the entire draft class is now under contract.
Yeah, and that just puts one thing, out of the way. You don't want to worry about these little tiny things like that, especially with a guy who's trying to become an NFL player in his first season. Get it out of the way. I'm so happy that Adonai Mitchell got signed. And hey, man, now they're all signed, and now we can finally start to get ready for the 2024 season, man. I'm pumped.
And Mitchell wasn't the only one that signed today. The Colts signed a couple of tryout players from mandatory minicamp. They signed cornerback Clay Fields III and wide receiver Derek Swilka. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. But hey, they showed out enough in mandatory minicamp to get those roster spots, and now they're going to have a chance to go prove themselves and see if one of them can defy the odds and make a splash in training camp and compete for a roster spot, if not a practice squad spot.
Yeah, Clay Fields is really interesting. He missed 2020, but 2019 and then 2021 and 2022, he played at Marist College. Then he went to Chattanooga and actually compiled a pretty solid final season. So I think that Indy needs cornerback depth. If this guy can even show a little bit of aptitude to play cornerback, there's a chance he could make the freaking roster, or at least a practice squad spot. You need depth at cornerback. And then I really like Slowka because he was a safety at Ithaca. Okay. And he had, let me see here. Yeah, so the guy actually had some pretty crazy stats. He played only 3 years, but he had 119 tackles, 11 interceptions, 30 passes defended. But here's something interesting: 4 blocked punts and kicks. Now he's a wide receiver. Okay, athletic freak. He's like 6'3", 220. He's going to be special teams material right away because of those blocked kicks and punts. That's where he's going to get his start, or at least a chance to shine. So I'm intrigued by both of these guys. I think the Colts need cornerback depth. It'll be interesting to see what can be done there for Fields. And then, of course, I do like Swilka just because of the athleticism, the position change. I'm intrigued by that. I want to see what they're going to do with him. He might push Ashton Doolin, but I think Ashton Doolin might have something to say about that.
And hey, if you get on the practice squad, you never know what injuries can and will happen. So you're only a couple injuries away from being called, from having your number called and being on the 53-man roster. And then to make the room for Fields and Swilka to be on the roster. We already talked about the Colts sending or placing Daniel Scott on injured reserve. They also released offensive lineman Jack Anderson today to make room for those tryout guys. So that's really all the news for the Indianapolis Colts. And like I said, Colts broke today. They're done until we're back in Westfield in July. We'll be down there at training camp once again this year to bring you guys all the latest and greatest. So now the Colts can kind of rest up, get prepared, take a little mental break, and then once we get to the end of July, all eyes forward on the 2024 season for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and now is when you start to really buckle down. You start to learn everything about the scheme that you're in, and you start to gel with your teammates. We've already seen it happen with AR and AD Mitchell. Okay, so you're seeing these kind of things happen. And also, back real quick on the Jack Anderson news. I was a little bit surprised by that because they did extend him. I think, or something like that. I thought that they were a little higher on him, but I gotta say, I think it was Tanner Bortolini. I think obviously he's listed as a guard, but I mean, he played center, so I think that you're looking at I think they're a little higher on what he could possibly be. And they're happy with Wesley French. Clearly, they're happy with Ryan Kelly. I think this was just, like you said, to make room for more important positions where they think that they need more depth or starting type of talent.
It's really a numbers game. They gave him a 1-year deal after last season. And when you draft, Matt Gonzalez, who can play interior and on the outside. You draft Tanner Bortolini. You bring back Danny Pinter, who was out all last season. Wesley French is still there, Ryan Kelly, not to mention some of the other guards. Just became a numbers game for Jack Anderson, and I don't want this to sound harsh, but he just became expendable. So we'll have to see how the rest of that interior offensive line shakes out once we get through the preseason and training camp. So that's our show for today, guys. Really appreciate everybody tuning in to talk about minicamp, and hopefully we kind of calm some nerves about Anthony Richardson today as well. Shout out to our super chats: Shaheen, my beautiful wife Danielle, DSG Goodbar, Logan Schmidt, at AK Scotty Colt, and then DSG Goodbar once again. Really appreciate you guys, as well as everyone else that tuned in to talk Colts football with us this evening. If you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every single time throughout the entire summer, because while the Colts may be taking a break, we aren't. We're going to continue to bring you Colts-centric content all off season long, all summer long, all the way up until we get to training camp. And Yim coming in here with his super chat of his own. Thanks, guys. You are by far the most interactive pod. Well, hey, Yim, we really appreciate it, buddy. That's what we want to do. You know, we want to bring fans in here, make it a community, and just talk Colts football with you all. Just act like we're all sitting around a fire or whatever, just talking about the boys in blue. So Yim, thank you so much. We appreciate the hell out of you, buddy. But yeah, and then if you can't, can't catch us live, because we all understand summer is busy. Sometimes you can't catch us on YouTube, can't catch us live. No worries. You're still driving to work every day, or you're at home working from home. You're still listening to podcasts. That's where you subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen, because we're on there as well. You get to listen to our Horseshoe Huddle halftime episodes. We did a really fun one this week, really diving into Dallas Clark's career and how he revolutionized the tight end position. So make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star review on there so we can continue to reach other Colts fans just like you. And we'll still be bringing you content here on the YouTube side of things on the Horseshoe Huddle podcast all summer. And we're going to continue to write on horseshoehuddle.com all summer long. Drake, I know you've got some pieces out there. Tell the people what they need to go check out.
Yeah, so I covered, unfortunately, I covered a little bit more on Daniel Scott, and then I discussed each one of the rookies and how they were able to finally get all those contracts after A.D. Mitchell got his last one. And then I covered the recent roster moves, but I do have a piece coming out on the tight end room and just how it's ambiguous. What are we expecting from the Colts tight end room? It's highly competitive, so go check out that when it comes out.
Make sure you go give those a read. Myself, got a couple pieces out on the site. First, Alec Pierce really dove into what he thinks and his thoughts on the competition with Adonai Mitchell that everybody has been talking about. Also, Michael Pittman Jr. spoke yesterday talking about, the wide receiver market. And is there a little bit of buyer's remorse that he signed his deal so early? And then you see guys like Justin Jefferson getting $35 million a year, AJ Brown, $32 million a year. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a little bit over $30 million a year. His comments were pretty interesting, so go check that out. And guys, tomorrow I'm going to dive into the comments made by none other than Anthony Richardson about his shoulder and all the details that he gave regarding how he is feeling and what is to come for the Colts QB1. So make sure you check those out, as well as everything else by our fantastic writers at horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we'll be back Monday night to talk more Colts football with you all. It's going to be a really fun summer, just talking about Colts until we get to training camp, now less than 2 months away. So everyone, enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you have some nice weather, can go outside, spend time with your family, and we'll be right back here on Monday night. So take it easy.